Nearly 20 years ago, in 2007, the greatest video game ever created was released, Halo 3. Or so I thought. I have 3 years tied to this game, countless hours tied to its amazing campaign, and weekend-long LAN parties with friends, and a serious amount of time in Forge and unlocking collectibles. But is all this nostalgia padding a better experience? Is Halo 3 truly one of the greats in video game history? And if it is, what does that say about the current state of gaming nearly 20 years later? Particularly when Xbox and the Halo series are probably in the worst spot they've ever been in. So for the first time in nearly a decade, I'm gonna look to solve just that. Is my favorite game of all time actually good? So, one of my original copies of Halo 3 has been cooking in the sun for nearly 5 years. So, unfortunately, the majority of this revisit will be via the Master Chief Collection, but the Halo 3 multiplayer servers have been down for years, so it was limited regardless. So if I were to ask you which one's your favorite Halo, I think Halo 2 and Halo 3 would be by far the most popular answers, with maybe Halo Reach getting a small nod. I think this comes down almost entirely to which multiplayer you got access to first. Personally, Halo 2 was my first Halo experience, but I lived in the middle of nowhere, so an Xbox Live experience wasn't exactly an option in 2005. My Halo 2 multiplayer was sleepovers playing split screen all night. But Halo 3 took everything Halo 2 built and perfected it. In 2005, a year after Halo 2's release, it had reportedly seen 2 million users using its Xbox Live multiplayer. Halo 3 saw 2.7 million unique users in its first week. This was the burgeoning era of Halo's popularity amongst console players, but as I load up the Master Chief Collection to grab footage for this video, the Halo 3 playlist matchmake much faster than anything else on there. This is even factoring in that Halo 2 has its remaster on there. Halo 3 seems to be holding a much larger appeal, with players still playing it this many years later. As I load this game up for the first time in nearly a decade, I'm genuinely surprised. The graphics are dated. I mean, obviously this game was made in 2007, but the feel, the gunplay, the essence, that's all still here, and to be honest, the visual fidelity isn't as bad as I imagined. Have you gone back to see movies that you've seen as a kid now that you're an adult, and they look monstrous in comparison to your memory of it? Well, this isn't that. I loaded into a game of SWAT on Foundry, and I'm getting destroyed, but it's slowly coming back to me, and to be honest, I am all smiles. Now, there's so much to Halo's multiplayer that I'm gonna break it down into 4 sections. LAN, casual, ranked, and what I'm loosely calling party games. But I want to start where it all began for me. As I said, Halo 2 was split-screen sleepovers for me. That was the extent of it. But by the time Halo 3 launched in September of 2007, enough of my friends had 360s that those split-screen sleepovers gradually became LAN parties. I have vivid memories of going to my dad's, bringing all my friends with me, and playing Halo 3 the whole time. 4v4 local custom games on favorites like Last Resort, Valhalla, High Ground, The Pit. So many good maps that even the bad ones were fun. I despised Epitaph, but my dad loved it for whatever reason, so it would make the rotation here and there. But when we really wanted to get serious, it was free-for-all on Guardian. It's my favorite all-time map for this reason. It was the lock-in map. The closest thing I had to a LAN experience previous to this was, I think, Lego Star Wars at recess with a bunch of friends in the DS era. I think looking at the modern landscape, everything is unattached and mobile. That the closest experience I can think of to this phenomenon is maybe Animal Crossing's release and having a household all obsessed with their own islands. These custom games had their archetypes that every friend group had: the guy who just drove the vehicles around, the friend with an internal clock on every weapon spawn, the camper who crouch walked everywhere with their shoddy sniper combo, and the cannon fodder friend who was just happy to be there. My brother only showed up mentally on the big maps where Wraiths and Banshees were involved. Sandtrap was basically his home. Meanwhile, I had certain loops picking up power weapons on cooldown, making sure I had prio on the OP weapons before others could use them on me. These parties grew larger over time too. When the 360 Elite dropped and everyone was still freaking out about the red ring of death, you could go to your local EB Games and pick one of the original white ones up for relatively cheap. Suddenly, everyone had a console and the LAN parties scaled accordingly. So the question then was, where are you going to put all the CRTs and monitors? But Xbox Live started to make this largely redundant as we all started to get faster internet speeds. You didn't need to be in the same room anymore, and Halo 3 was already popping there when we moved online. Once Xbox Live took over for us, casual online multiplayer became the norm. You'd hop on, throw in some Team Slayer, Free-for-All, SWAT. Maybe you're more into the objective game modes. Capture the Flag, Oddball, King of the Hill, Halo staples that are integral to its history, but honestly never really my thing. What was my thing though was loading up with a group of friends and just vibing. Nothing else for the day, just Halo. Everyone always brings up Modern Warfare 2 as the peak of classic multiplayer lobbies, for better or for worse. but for me it was always Halo 3. And the peak of that casual experience were moments where there were 3 of us piling into a warthog on mid-sized maps like Valhalla, Last Resort, or Rat's Nest. Rat's Nest was a DLC edition, but it became an instant favorite for us. Giant looping roads on the outside, close quarters in the middle. This meant the gunners played the mid and the drivers did laps avoiding the gravity hammers and hunting the ghost. I mentioned briefly in my Starfield video that Halo 3 had the peak vehicle handling, and nothing encapsulates that more than just spending an hour just drifting that loop trying to get your gunner the perfect angle. As I revisit this multiplayer, I'm reminded that I never really progressed at getting better at video games. But ever so often, I'll get into a flow state, strafing with the AR or tapping heads and SWAT with the battle rifle, and it all comes back, reminding me of my youth and of the kid that loved this game, the game that would largely be the only game he would ever be good at. And I would be silly if I didn't mention a staple of Halo's multiplayer experience. COD players have that crazy sound effects when kill streaks are unlocked, but Halo had it better. We had this crazy guy giving the best kill streak notifications possible. Getting a spree is nice, but hearing kill-tacular just gets the heart pumping, and the game had these medals that you get in your after-action report that really exemplify the experience beyond the typical KD ratio. My personal favorite was always Bold True because it had a funny name and it meant that cock blocked someone out of a power weapon kill. That's the thing about Halo 3's multiplayer. It was fun before fun had to be incentivized and time slotted. No weapon unlocks, no battle passes, no daily challenges to keep you playing the game. Just the game. Modern games have you leveling up 20 different things, and I can't really imagine modern games without that. But back then, and even now as I revisit this, it's just fun to play. The moment-to-moment joy isn't being calculated by if I got enough experience to unlock that next thing. And that's interesting if you think about how we have evolved away from that. But if you wanted more than casual, Halo 3 had that too. Now, my friend Mark will probably not forgive me for not dedicating more time to this section, because Ranked Halo 3 was kind of revolutionary for the whole genre. If I'm gonna be honest, Ranked was never really my thing. I loved chilling with my friends, and to play Ranked you had to either lock in or go at it in free-for-all, so I played it a lot less than I'd like to admit. What I can tell you is that when I did, it was the first real ranking system that actually meant something. Going up the ranks felt genuinely good. I was the highest ranked player in my family at one point, which sounds silly, but at the time it felt like a real achievement. Because here's the thing about Halo 3's ranked mode that I don't think gets enough credit. This game was the cornerstone of the MLG circuit, and it's largely considered an integral title for legitimizing console esports into the competitive format. The visible skill tiers, the skill-based matchmaking, the separation of casual and ranked playlists, this architecture become the template going forward. Basically, every competitive multiplayer shooter you play today has Halo 3's fingerprints on its rank system, whether it acknowledges it or not. It was doing this nearly 20 years ago. Make of that what you will. As I hop back into it, it's clearly apparent my lack of recent experience is dragging my team down. I just really haven't touched a shooter like Halo 3 in years, so never really felt motivated to give it more than a few hours. But not everyone wants to sweat, and Halo 3 knew that too. And that's where a lot of things got really fun. Beyond your standard TDM and objective game mode sat what I'm loosely calling the party section. This included things like Griffball, a variation of Oddball with gravity hammers galore, Juggernaut, it is what it sounds like, and my personal favorite, Infected. One player starts infected and hunts everyone else until the lobby has turned. Simple concept, absolutely chaotic in execution. But the centerpiece of party games for me was always big team battles. 8v8, large maps, vehicles everywhere. Having the full squad roll out on Valhalla with a Warthog, Wraith, and a Banshee was unmatched. Sandtrap took it even further, a vehicle-infested desert where snipers feasted and chaos reigned. Unless you've actually felt the handling of a Mongoose, Warthog, or a Ghost, it's genuinely hard to put into words. Doing jumps on rock edges mid-fight is half the fun, almost like it's skate and it would net you extra points. And if you landed it, pure ecstasy. And as I was diving back into the game modes for this video, I stumbled across something that I had never seen before. Recon pistols. SWAT, but your only weapon is a silenced pistol. There's no world this was in the original Halo 3, this has to be a community-made edition, but oh my god, this felt good. SWAT with the battle rifle has always been a top 3 game mode for me, but this pistol variation makes it slightly less sweaty and an absolute joy. It's been nearly 20 years and I'm still finding game modes that slightly tweak the formula, yet they still feel fresh and a pure joy to play. play. In the original Halo 3, there was a veto system during matchmaking, letting the lobby vote out a game mode or map before the match started. It was a small time burn, but it kept the experience clean and fresh from less popular maps and modes. The Master Chief Collection doesn't have this, and I've been plagued by some genuinely terrible combinations as a result.
Particularly in big team where people kind of just leave bad matches and the lobby kind of just deteriorates after that.
It's my only real gripe, and it's not even with Halo 3, it's with the collection. Small caveat to an otherwise great return to this multiplayer experience in this game.
LAN, casual lobbies, ranked, party modes, Halo 3 had a version of itself for every type of player and executed all of them at such a high level for that era.
And after my revisit of it, it still stands the tests of time.
I wish I could see the amount of people online specifically for Halo 3 playlists, because this game still has some serious staying power on its multiplayer nearly 20 years out.
And it genuinely felt good to come back to this game.
There's something about the fun aspect of its combat, map layouts, and weapons that just gets me into a flow state where time just escapes notice.
And that personally is something that's setting the bar pretty high for this revisit.
In regards to game specifics, the multiplayer is still holding this high bar of best multiplayer I've ever played.
And this multiplayer is just one piece of what made the game so complete and special for me, because Halo 3's campaign was never something to scoff at,
Which is odd in a world full of shooters with filler campaigns to pad the cost. Let's get into that now.
I've played through this campaign more times than I can count, but loading it up again now, that opening scene still gets me. Chief plummeting to Earth after the ending of Halo 2, Johnson pulling him out, then immediately at blows with the Arbiter. In 30 seconds, the game introduces you to its three most important relationships, well,
We'll accept one.
scored by one of the greatest soundtracks in gaming history. And then it just keeps going from there,
Because his campaign's relentless with its high points that I still remember to this day.
Easter eggs tucked in every corner.
even specific loot spots like a crashed Pelican loaded with snipers that I still remember the location of nearly 20 years later.
But what stands out the most to me as I revisit it,
The convoy sections don't suck to play through. Bear with me here because I know that sounds a little bit random. I have never liked the vehicle section of any shooter's campaign. They all feel like they're a shooter sim from an arcade, stiff and on rails.
Cyberpunk is my most recent example, and that game generally bangs, but its vehicle sections are formulaic and lifeless.
Halo 3 never does this.
Mission 3 alone gives you a Warthog, then a Chopper, then Ghosts, and Wraiths, and lets you pick whichever you want to push forward with while keeping the Warthog on standby in case you want to go back to your roots. And then there's the mission with the Scorpion. Riding through the desert in a tank, you feel absolutely overpowered in this new setting.
I just think it's notable that it's the singular instance in gaming history where I enjoy every single one of the vehicle sections in the campaign.
And then there's the Flood. An absolute terror for me in my younger age.
Floodgate is a terrifying introduction to the horror of it, but the Cortana mission takes it to another level for me, navigating a flood-infested nightmare to rescue her. This was absolute nightmare material for me as a kid.
I don't fare too well with horror elements, so trying to finish this on Legendary was genuinely a diabolical task.
Get me the fuck out of here.
I will say, as I revisit it now, I am struck by how many sections are riddled with this dialogue with Cortana and Gravemind.
And the terror isn't as overwhelming as it once was for me, but these missions are still hitting.
These moments hit harder because of who you are experiencing them with. Johnson was humanity's stand-in, this lovable, grumpy uncle who was down for every crazy idea Chief had, always bitching about something, which makes his sacrifice at the end land harder than it has any right to in a shooter.
Johnson!
343 Guilty Spark is your wacky, wayward AI companion who helps you the whole way until his goals and yours diverge again, and he smites Johnson without hesitation.
One of the greatest betrayals I've ever experienced in gaming, especially because this is the second time he's done that.
And then there's Chief and the Arbiter, enemies forced into an unlikely companionship to face a bigger threat.
This game is quite literally a buddy cop film with two cops that hate each other, but have to work together to save the princess.
The princess being, well, Cortana. This weird relationship between a super soldier abducted as a child and an oddly nude AI is the emotional core of the whole trilogy.
This is slightly prophetic about the state of AI in 2026.
Cortana was always at the top of my list of childhood crushes, but I never really wanted to admit that to anyone.
These characters and relationships didn't start here, but Halo 3 pushes them to their peak.
This game generally got me into the lore, so much so I would read some of the early books about John joining the Spartan program. The later games lost me story-wise,
But like everyone knows, the series is just a trilogy, and ODST and Reach are just fun side content.
Nothing happened after, nothing.
Good enough.
None of this lands the way it does without the music, and I generally don't think this is a controversial statement.
This might be the most recognizable soundtrack in gaming history.
Well, besides maybe Mario, Pokemon, and Minecraft, but those are family friendly, they don't count.
I see streamers using it as hype music right now with no reference to the source.
Just getting hyped off that guitar riff.
I have plenty of memories as a kid of finding random locations with enough echo and trying to recreate that choir track. This soundtrack covers every emotional beat that you could hope for: wonder, hype, loss, desperation, terror, and it deploys each one at exactly the right moment throughout the campaign. And if we're going to be honest, it very much carries the story higher than it has any right to.
And if there's one mission that encapsulates everything that I've said here, the mission design, the characters, the music, it has to be that very last mission.
The Halo ring is self-destructing and you are escaping with a warthog and a dream. The Covenant forces are either mounting a last stand or fleeing in terror around you. The terrain is collapsing underneath and that iconic track is thrumming underneath, all of it pushing you forward. As I play it again, it is a pure joy as this rhythmic adrenaline rush hits you as the whole world literally explodes around you. It culminates in a leap of faith across open sky into a ship hangar, leaving you with one question:
Dun, dun, dun.
Did we survive?
The legendary ending does spoil this immediately though, as we see them floating through space dormant.
That final mission is up there with the greatest epic moments in gaming history for me.
The night raid in Red Dead Redemption 2 is really the only thing I could think of in the same breath.
It'd be a real shame if they woke up from their cryo sleep in a not so great game.
The campaign alone would make Halo 3 worth talking about nearly 20 years later. I mean, I just played through it, and besides some wonky animations here and there, it still holds up for the most part. How many games generally have a stellar multiplayer in a shooter environment and a fully stacked story that is both lengthy and full of punch?
I can't think of that many personally.
But Bungie didn't stop there. What kept this game alive long after the credits rolled was something else entirely.
Let's talk about Forge.
Halo 3 had 4 modes: Campaign, Multiplayer, Theater, which let you watch your matches back, and Forge.
Forge was the map editor, and on the surface that sounds like a niche feature for a small subset of players who wanted to tinker.
It was not that. What the community built with it was genuinely staggering.
Infected, already one of my favorite game modes, was completely transformed by Forge. People were building haunted escape room structures, cramped corridors designed to make the infected feel terrifying. The standout for me was a giant house map on Foundry, definitely inspired by COD 4. It had the infected starting outside trying to get in, the survivors slowly getting pushed back room by room as more turned.
Simple concept, but completely terrifying for me.
Built entirely by the community and a map editor in 2007.
A thing to note is that creators could tweak the maps, but also the game modes.
There were hundreds of super cool infected variances with maps to boot.
And that was just Infected.
Halo 3 came packed with large maps with massive skyboxes, which gave people essentially a blank canvas. Race courses, jumping puzzles, speedrun challenges, a gravity simulator where infinite objects spawned above you and rolled downhill, and your only job was to survive long enough to reach the top. The only limitation was how many objects you could place before the engine tapped out.
My actual first experience with a map editor was with Far Cry Instincts in 2005. I was obsessed with this.
But Forge had me sinking 10 times the hours into it.
I was young, so I can't imagine how good my creations actually were, but I was making them.
And before school, I would browse the Bungie equivalent of whatever the community hub was.
Download the highest rated maps and come home to a full queue of things to try. Those multiplayer meetups with friends weren't just shooting modes anymore either.
It was race courses, the custom infected modes, and the shit things that we were making ourselves.
Forge essentially turned Halo 3 into a somewhat predecessor to what Minecraft, Roblox, and GTA Online's creator modes would become, and low-key was what made them blow up.
Where you could experience the game in completely different ways based entirely on what the community was putting out.
Before any of those platforms really even existed, Halo 3 was already doing it on a disc-based Xbox 360. What made it even better was that Bungie got involved. They started curating weekly playlists featuring the best community creations and pushing them directly into matchmaking.
The best stuff was upfront and accessible. This kept the game feeling fresh long after its release. This is a feat that not many games really accomplish.
I played Halo 3 for nearly 3 years straight.
My last achievement timestamp sits just a few weeks before Halo Reach dropped.
I don't know any other game from that era that held me and my friends so singularly for that long.
I think Forge deserves more credit than it ever really gets. It turned a shooting platform into really any type of game that you wanted to play that day.
The craziest thing as I reminisce on this is that it was doing the GTA Online, Minecraft, and Roblox thing many years prior to them.
This truly may be the most overlooked feature of the Halo series, and especially Halo 3.
Now imagine selling a modern Halo game and not packaging Forge with it until a year after release. That would be kind of crazy, wouldn't it?
But Forge wasn't my greatest achievement, not even close. and my last few achievement timestamps make this very clear.
Let's talk about the part of this game I am maybe most embarrassed about how much time I dedicated to.
The collectibles. In modern games, the two most popular ways to chase aesthetics are
To either drop $20 on that week's rotating shop skin, or grind that generic gold weapon camo with 1,000 headshots.
but Halo 3 did it in the best way possible. The best skins were achievements.
I mean, you had to be in the lobbies back in those days. If you saw someone with a recon helmet, especially if it was flaming, that was a Bungie employee. You needed to be on your best behavior.
I never learned how true these rumors were because the recon helmet was kind of like Herobrine. Probably just made up for clicks, but what if they were true?
I used to obsess over this helmet so much that I came across a post online that said the only way to get it outside of working for Bungie was to get one gifted to you by a Bungie employee in lobby. So anytime I saw one, I logged in hopes I would win the Halo lottery.
My skin obsession didn't start with recon though.
If you casually played the game, you had maybe 3 or 4 basic options. But if you saw someone running the Hayabusa armor in those early days, that stood out.
That was earned and it was visually very distinct. I needed it.
The Hayabusa set was tied to skulls, a campaign collectible that, when found, would net you an achievement.
But you also had to activate them during missions to hit score thresholds for additional achievement hunting. Some skulls were brutal debuffs, enemies lobbing grenades constantly, shields only regenerating through melee. Some were fan favorites that added some extra dialogue, and then there was Grunt Birthday Party. Any headshot on a grunt and its head explodes into confetti with children screaming, "Hooray!"
This is pretty obviously my favorite, so I combed through every tutorial I could find to hunt all these skulls down.
And when I finally had the Hayabusa set,
I wore it like a badge of honor, and as more time went on, it became more common. People were having a similar sentiment about how cool it was.
Which meant I needed the next big thing.
the EOD helmet was tied to campaign difficulty completion. Hard was a struggle for me. Legendary seemed genuinely daunting as a self-confessed unskilled gamer.
But I did get there eventually. And then, the ultimate goal presented itself.
The security set with the katana. This required near perfect game completion, 1000 gamer score.
As a kid, and probably to this day, this is the single greatest achievement in my gaming life. It was when I finally unlocked it. So the very last thing before I moved on to Reach was
Equipping the security helmet, the puffy shoulders, the katana on my back.
And walking into my first Social Slayer match wearing it. I was genuinely proud.
not because I bought it, but because I put hours into actually getting it done and unlocked.
And besides the, at the time, unobtainable recon helmet, it was the rarest piece in the game.
Your armor in Halo 3 was your resume of sorts. The average player had just the basic sets.
Everyone in that lobby could read exactly what you had accomplished just by looking at you, or if they were smart, your service record.
Did you know that one of Moist Critical's oldest videos is him showcasing said armor? He was throwing grenades, it was weird.
This philosophy where cosmetics are the visual representation of a mastery of a part of the game is almost completely absent from the modern multiplayer.
One swipe of a card and you can have the most impressive looking character in the lobby having done absolutely nothing.
I'm by no means against devs monetizing skins to keep the lights on.
But at the cost of this, the feeling of wearing something that you actually earned, I genuinely miss that.
Every new multiplayer game that I load up, I always wish that it handles skins the exact same way.
None of them do though, since the Battle Pass era is here to stay.
So, is Halo 3 as good as I remember? Is it the greatest video game ever made?
After revisiting the multiplayer, replaying the campaign, and sitting with the memories of Forge and everything I put into this game as a kid,
Yeah, it is.
and honestly that surprised me a little. Nostalgia has a way of making things bigger than they were.
This wasn't that.
What I found when I returned to this nearly 20-year-old video game was that it wasn't just a great shooter that aged well.
It was a game that understood something about its players that most modern games have quietly stopped caring about.
It respected your time.
It rewarded your skill, it gave you tools to be creative, and it made sure that everything you put into it was visible to everyone around you. The multiplayer had something for every type of player and executed all of it at a high level. The campaign was a genuine artistic achievement in a genre full of throwaway stories. Forge handed the community the keys and allowed them to do what they wanted with it. And the cosmetics made sure that walking into a lobby wearing the fruits of your effort meant something.
And that's a complete package. And the frustrating thing, the thing that's been underneath everything that I've said in this video,
Is that it came out in 2007, nearly 20 years ago, on a disc for an Xbox 360.
The bar was set that high that long ago, and the genre has spent the better part of 2 decades walking sideways around it rather than clearing it.
Of course, I don't think modern gaming is without its brilliance.
KCD 2, Expedition 33.
Games like that remind me that people still care about making something complete.
But in the specific space of the multiplayer shooter, the genre Halo 3 defined, I'm still waiting.
Still loading up new games, hoping that they're gonna give me that feeling back.
The one I can sink 3 years in, earning something worth showing off, and drag my friends into a room for a whole weekend over it.
Now, is Halo 3 genuinely the best video game ever made? Objectively, probably not.
But it had so much in its package, all performing at the best they possibly could in an era they were made in. I do not know how much more I can emphasize how great all these aspects are,
And the game still holds up nearly 20 years later.
I have lost countless hours capturing footage for this just because I've lost track of time because of how much fun I was having.
And even if Halo 3 isn't objectively the greatest game ever made, subjectively, it is my favorite game of all time. If you enjoyed this revisit, a simple like or hype goes a long way for a channel like mine.
I really want to do an ODST revisit, but I really don't know how well this video will do,
So let me know, does this slight tweak to the formula work in these types of situations?
or subscribe for my next video. In 2 weeks, by popular demand, I'll be revisiting Fallout 76, nearly 8 years after its disastrous launch. Has it gone better? We shall see.
Until next time, my name is Easy Break. Toodaloo.